welcome to Inquiring Minds with Donna Carlin and Steve Harper. I am your co-host, Steve Harper, and with me as always is Donna Carlin. Donna, how are you doing today?
I'm great. I'm looking forward to percolating with you on how this all started.
Absolutely. Well,
Good.
it's this question is a good one because we kind of talked about a few, and this one I was super excited about. What could one connection mean to you? And kind of, if you think about it, you have to look to us for the answer to that question. So let's talk about this. What can one connection mean to you, Donna?
It could change your life. It could really change your life.
Yep.
I was thinking back 15 years ago when the two of us were co-bloggers with a whole bunch of other people from around the world for Execubook summaries. Um, I loved what you wrote. Now, the first book was If Harry Potter Ran General Electric, and Tom Morris, the author, was on the blog with us. And the whole point was to discuss the topic of the book or the book itself, if you had a chance to read it during the week, or the summary. And you wrote something that I found really profound. So I wrote you in a private message to tell you the impact of your comment and what it meant to me. And then we started back and forthing, of course,
Yep.
and became friends,
Yep.
met in person. I dragged you to a conference because I wanted you to have the exposure. And, just looking at taking that moment, and instead of just saying to myself, oh, that's Steve Harper is a cool guy. He has an unfortunate name because that was our prime minister at the time and sort of looks like him a little bit. However, he seems to be really a really cool guy. And I'm going to reach out to tell him what it meant to me to read what he had to say. And that connection created a friendship that's been ongoing for 15 years. We
Yep.
live in two different countries, two different cities. And that didn't happen with all of the 15 of us.
No.
There's a core group that I stay in touch with since then, you more than the rest. And the question that I have is, where do you meet somebody and then forget to reach out and reconnect?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a good question. And, I think back to how we connected and, everything happens for a reason. I tell people this all the time. The right connections will show up in your life at exactly the moment that they're supposed to if you're paying attention. And a lot of us don't
Bingo.
pay attention. And what I recognized in the time that you reached out to me, and I shared this with you when you were a guest on my podcast, The Ripple Effect, um, that your email couldn't have come at a better time because I had been invited to participate. I looked at the resumes of all the people that were invited to comment, and the premise behind it for the executive blogs was to basically provide reviews of various popular business books at the time. And when I got invited to do it, I was like very intimidated because I was fairly new into the coaching and consulting space. And I didn't feel like what I had to say had any value whatsoever. And I remember my wife saying, you're just crazy. You like reading, you have a
I like
decided
her.
opinion, and you just need to go for it. So when I pushed publish on that first review, and I had my own book, and I was like, who am I to review anybody else's book? I'm not even sure I want my book reviewed. I was very nervous and concerned. And almost instantaneously, your message came in, and you said how much you appreciated my perspective. Was I interested in getting together and having a conversation about it? And I instantly felt this bond and connection to you, not because you were so kind in reaching out and you were so positive in your words to me, but that you actually took the action to do it. I talk about the ripple a lot. It's that action that you take that makes such an impact. A lot of times people don't stop to think or recognize that in the moment, especially when it comes to the connections we make out there in the world. I know you have had many relationships with your clients that have turned into much more. They've become great friends, in a lot of cases, family, right? And I've done the same. And I look back and think, man, if I had just done it the way everybody else did it, how many of those people I would know, but I wouldn't know. And how I would be somehow not nearly as good as I am because I've gotten to bring them into my life. It would have been a missed opportunity.
It's really funny, that brings to mind something that happened to me when I was running a think tank like organization for coaching psychology, and it was coaching within organizational context. But it was the only organization in the world that we know of that was a multi-stakeholder organization. So it wasn't just like an association for coaching in organizations. What it was it was an organization that was made up of coaches, managers of coaching programs, clients, researchers, educators, organizational development specialists. So we looked at the profession from a 360 perspective to see, what we need to bring to the table to continuously make it better. And it was named ICCO, ICCO. What was really interesting was I figured one day I'm going on LinkedIn. I want to see how many ICCO members are on LinkedIn and whether or not I should start a group or whatever. All these names started popping up for ICCO that were not our organization. It was all from INSEAD, which is a global leadership center and school in Fontainebleau, France. It's an extraordinary school. It rivals Harvard. Wow. For their leadership programs. And this was like an alumni program for the coaching psychology program that was a residential doctoral program in France. So I looked to see who the head of that organization was, and I wrote him an email, and my entire email was, "You can't be ECO, we're ECO." That was it. About 5 minutes later, I get a phone call from the executive director of the organization saying that, he wants me to come. They're having their first ever meeting of alumni to figure out what to do with ECO because it wasn't successful. And they knew the work that we were doing and wanted me to come to France and be the only invited guest, external person to come. In the meantime, the president of the Professional School of Psychology, where I did my master's program, I told him that I was going to France, and he said, how did you go? I said, I wrote, Manfred, this email. You can't just write him an email. Here you go. You just can't. He is like the top in the world for our field. He's my hero, and you just can't write him an email. He's never going to answer you. I said, he did in 5 minutes. and we're going. And he says, I've been dying to interview him for our journal. So I said, I'll ask him. You can't just ask him to do something like that. He said, you don't ask, you don't know. It will never be yes if you don't ask.
That's right.
It will only be no because you don't. And the first thing I did when I met him in person is I said, okay, they wanted to interview you for this journal. And he said, well, my contact information, obviously, just set it up. So I contacted Bill and I said, it's done. Just let him know when. How do you do that? I said, it's called reaching out and making a connection.
Yep.
If you don't try, and half the people who I interviewed for my book, not all of them did I actually put in the book, from the U.S. Secret Service, from the White House, from the military. It's unbelievable. They all agreed to have the conversations with me because it was on human-based leadership, and I wanted to illustrate them as such.
Yep.
And I'm in touch with a lot of them even now. And the book came out in 2012? It's almost 10 years ago. Just look at the connections, and the way I look at it, it brings us knowledge. It brings us other people's experience so we could look at the world through new eyes. It brings us enriched life because we invite these people in and decide whether or not they'll stay in, obviously. And in some ways enrich their lives because we bring something to the table that they don't necessarily have.
Yep.
And then you could end up with a podcast like us.
You can. I mean, you look, all these years later, we've kept our friendship going. We continue to always encourage one another or kick each other in the hindquarters as needed. And that friendship is so instrumental to me because I know at any time I can pick up the phone and say I'm dealing with this or I'm struggling with that, and you'll be there with a perspective. May not always be something I want to hear, and it may not always be the advice that I'm looking for, but you're prepared to contribute and do what you can when you can. And that's what great connections are. But connections alone are just connections. You have to take the time and put in the effort and the energy towards building those into real relationships. And that's why this topic was so of interest to me, because we're a perfect example of that, right? We're sitting here 15 years later with technology that a year and a half ago neither one of us knew about. We're figuring out how to put on our own show and create it and make it go. It's a testament to the power of connection, and not just letting that random connection just be that, right? Taking that next step, learning about the other person, contributing as much as you're taking from the relationship is really key.
I think that very often people don't reach out to connect with somebody that they meet, through a conference, through whatever avenue, because they don't feel worthy of that person wanting to get to know us.
Yeah.
I think that is often a roadblock to us reaching out. Like, who am I to reach out to this person who just won the Olympics, like in their class for the Olympics, or hockey? I mean, me, I love hockey. I reached out to like one of the head coaches for one of the hockey teams to find out what the parallels were between the work I did and the coaching that they did in sports, because it's not prescriptive. And
Yep.
I found out stuff that I would never find out in any other way. And then I went to the Harvard Institute conference, and then I wrote him back saying, this stuff might be of value for you. And I was able to share with him some of the stuff that we reviewed at the conference, or the retreat, actually it was, that would be beneficial to him. So it's not only what you're getting, what are you giving?
Yep.
That
Exactly.
creates that, that connection and keeps it cemented.
Yep, absolutely. Well, and I always tell people, and I just spoke at a conference actually today, and it's for transitioning military personnel coming into the private sector, and many of them have only done the military, don't have any clear understanding or direction about what to do next in the civilian world. And many of them don't feel like they have the value. They had value in their military jobs, but they don't see the value that they bring into the civilian world. And what I was reminding them was that every single one of us has value. Every one of us is unique, and every one of us carries something special that makes us us. And that alone is a differentiator from everybody else out there. How you communicate it, how you put it in front of the right people, how do you make that magic happen? A lot of times it's just asking for the opportunity to connect, creating that opportunity for a conversation to take place. And when that does, that's where good things really tend to happen. And so I think, like you said, it's having the courage to pick up the phone and talk to the hockey manager, the coach, and hey, what I'm working on and what you're working on, very similar, different, but very similar. Are you interested in having a dialogue, having a conversation about it? And very similar to how you approached me 15 plus years ago, where you said, hey, I liked your take on this, kid. Let's get on a call and have a conversation. And so, it really is, there's no magic formula to it. There is just effort and your willingness to do it and put yourself out there to take the chance.
So one of the things that I tell people that I work with in our incubatory, which is how to grow people, ideas, that kind of stuff, is to say, you need something. You need funding, you need a team, you need whatever
Yep.
it is to get that idea from the ideation stage to implement it and get it out in the world. The question is, what is your give? So it's not only what is your ask and who do you need to ask in order to support you in making it happen. What is your give? What
Yep.
are you going to give back in order for them to feel as if what they've contributed is valuable, and what you have to give back is incredibly valuable.
Yep.
And we look at, what is the approach that you have to take, not only to make that connection, but to take it to the place that you need it to go in order to be valuable for you and the other person, so they know they've contributed to something greater than themselves.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we are a testament to that, my friend, and I am so grateful that we're doing this show together and that you approached me with this idea. I am loving the conversations we're having. I think This is why we're getting such great response from folks, because our inquiring minds are getting other people to have their own, get in touch with their own inquiring minds. So grateful that I got that email from you so many years ago, and that we've continued the conversation all these years. Look forward to
Me
many
too.
more. Yep.
So how do people get hold of you?
So you can find me on my website, ripplecentral.com. You can send me an email, steve@ripplecentral.com, or you can reach me on Twitter @rippleon. And Donna, what about you?
You could get me at donnacarlin.com, and there's a contact page. Let me know what you think, what you feel, what you want to ask, what you want us to discuss. I'm open to it all.
Absolutely.
And you'll find me on Twitter at @the_shadow coach, or on LinkedIn, which is where I live most of the time.
Yep. Having great conversations with all those amazing people out there. You do a great job being an expert on LinkedIn, for sure. So I'm so grateful for everybody joining us. We definitely appreciate it. Like Donna said, if you have topics of conversation that you'd like us to have, questions, comments, we take it all. We would love to hear from you. Let us know whether we're tweaking or piquing your inquiring mind, because we sure are enjoying this process. So until next time, have a great day.
Bye for now.
Let's do that finish off a little better since I screwed that up, and I'll edit this out.
How did you screw that up?
Oh, I said tweaking. That's a drug term.
No, it's not. Tweaking just means a small course correction.
That's true. That is true. That's true. Okay. Well,
If you want to redo it, we could redo it. It's up to you.
We'll just do the last one. This has been a great conversation. I am so grateful that you joined us today. We'll be back with another interesting Inquiring Mind conversation very soon. Bye for now.